For this talk, we now turn to Bridgwater's Iron Bridge of 1794. Its story begins with the world's first ever iron bridge, which was cast and built at Coalbrookdale, Shropshire, and opened in 1778. This was instigated in 1775 by a group of subscribers who wished to build a bridge over the River Severn, as the cost of ferrying stones over the river for the Coalbrookdale foundry was too great. The tender documents specify that brick, stone or wood was envisaged for the construction, and it would have a span of 120 feet, a width of 18 feet, and a centre arch of around 35 feet from low water. For comparison, the iron bridge in Bridgwater was about 2/3 of this size. The Coalbrookdale Bridge was designed by Thomas Farnalls Pritchard, a Shrewsbury architect and bridge builder, who had proposed such a design in 1773 to Joseph Wilkinson, the ironmaster, with works at Wiley, Shropshire and Bradford in Staffordshire. Back in 1709, the first Abraham Darby had rebuilt Coalbrookdale. His business was that of an iron founder, making cast iron goods, including pots, kettles, firebacks, and the like. These were sold over a wide area from Northumberland and Cumberland and London and Cornwall. They were initially transported by trough for further distribution by road to local ironmongers. And the trough had been developed so that heavy, bulky cargoes of coal, grain, salt or quarried stone could be carried in relatively shallow water. Typically, they were 65 to 70 feet long, 14 to 16 feet wide, and of a shallow draft. At Bristol, Neremiah Champion sold an enormous amount as he also exported abroad. A typical shipment was 2,370 pots and kettles, 500 small wares totalling 29.5 tons and valued at £360. It might be significant that the 1735 map of Bridgwater has marked on it Mr. Darby's Quay at the bottom of Chandos, later Castle Street, and perhaps this was to aid his distribution in the west of England. Other iron bridges followed Coalbrookdale, but not for a decade later. Rainey, near Paris, was built in 1788, and Wallets, near Magdeburg, was completed in 1791, both being replicas of the Coaldale Bridge with the semicircular arch. In 1791, the Coalbrookdale Company cast a bridge for Holland, the details of which are lost. In 1794, they cast a bridge for the Marquess of Stafford at Treffham Park, Staffordshire, which survived into the 1930s, when it was sadly replaced by one of concrete. There are no Coalbrookdale foundry records between 1748 and 1798, but fortunately the Bridgwater Borough records contain documents relating to the Bridgwater Bridge. They are articles of agreement between the Coalbrookdale Company at Coalbrookdale, Shropshire, and the Committee of the Bridgwater Corporation to contract for erecting an iron bridge dated the 1st of June 1795. There are also a few letters, 1793 to 1798, accounts of 1795 to 7, and 1797 to 8, and an engraving of the elevation of the bridge. In 1794 an Act of Parliament was obtained, an act for building a new bridge over the River Parrett within the borough of Bridgwater in the county of Somerset, and for repairing, maintaining and extending the quays of the port of Bridgwater. The Bridge Committee in Bridgwater comprised of Robert Codrington, the Mayor, Edward Seeley, John Crandon, John Symes and Joseph Jeffrey. The letters were signed by Thomas Pike, who seems to have acted as a clerk of the works. Thomas Pike was a brass and bell founder with premises on the corner of St Mary Street and Dampier Street. He was an elder of the Christ Church Chapel in Dampier Street. The agreement for the Bridgwater Bridge noted that the price of the ironwork would be £1,430 to be paid in 2 instalments, and it was designed by Thomas Gregory of Coalbrookdale, a foreman pattern maker who had designed the component parts of the first iron bridge in Shropshire. The castings would be delivered to Bridgwater by 31st July 1796, and Thomas Parry, an architect and bridge builder of Cardiff, was to build the masonry abutments. The borough of Bridgwater was to supply the scaffolding, estimated to cost £500, but this would at least have resale value, so they could save a bit of money there. The accounts survive for 1795 to 8, and these show that the abutments cost £1,200, and Thomas Gregory was paid £10 for making the pattern for the coat of arms on the bridge's sides. He was a fine model maker, and made one of the Coalbrookdale Bridge for the Coalbrookdale Company, which is now in the Science Museum in London. Income to pay for the bridge was received in turnpike tolls and tonnage tolls, presumably for goods wagons, and between 25th of March 1795 and the 25th of March 1798, this came to £2,776, 15 shillings and 2 pence, which was more than half of the cost of the project. A fine engraving of the bridge was published in 1797, which you can see here. Thus, Bridgwater's Iron Bridge was the third to be erected in Britain. However, the time between the Coalbrookdale Bridge and the Bridgwater Bridge had been a time of interest in bridge design, the most important being from Tom Paine, who was also a revolutionary politician. In 1783, after recovering from the strains of the American War of Independence and publishing the renowned Rights of Man, in 1791-2, he began to design a single-span bridge to cross the river Schuylkill in Philadelphia in a single span of a massive 400 feet. The Coalbrookdale Bridge had been made from a tall semicircular arch, whose height made the design feasible only for rivers running through deep gorges, or for bridges with costly embankment towers, clearly impossible for a river of the width in Philadelphia. Instead, he developed a much shallower arch, fashioned from a small segment of a large circle, and such a shallow arch could stand more than 100 feet and required no more than 5 feet of vertical clearance. He unsuccessfully experimented with bridges in New York, Paris, Yorkshire, and London, the latter constructed by the Rotherham-based firm of iron founders called Joshua Walker and Company. This was later dismantled, and the iron returned to Yorkshire, where some was used in the bridge built by the Walker Company over the River Wear in Sunderland in 1796, which at the time was the longest iron bridge in the world at 236 feet. The famous Wearmouth Bridge had a considerable affinity to Bridgwater's Bridge, with the diminishing rings filling the spandrel between the roadbed and the arch. It is a pity that John Chubb never drew the Bridgwater Iron Bridge being constructed, but we do have a series of magnificent engravings of the erection of the Wearmouth Bridge made by Robert Clark and published in 1798. This shows its enormous size, 3 times wider than Bridgwater, and high enough, 100 feet, for tall vessels to pass underneath. This second picture has a perspective of the abutments and the ribs. There were 6 ribs, but much deeper to cater for the stresses caused by the weight of the roadbed they supported. The ribs were open cast iron frames strapped together with wrought iron bands and later connected with cast iron tubes. There is also an elevation of the scaffolding support. The third picture shows the view through the bridge and the scaffolding support. No doubt something similar was done at Bridgwater. Contrary to the Wearmouth Bridge, which was built up from separate parts, the Bridgwater Bridge ribs, spandrel and diminishing rings appear to have been cast entirely as one piece, each in 2 halves, and simply hoisted into position to be joined in the middle. Iron bridges began to appear all over the country from here on, but that's another story. Between 1811 and 1881, there was a threefold increase in Bridgwater's population living on either side of the river, linked by a single bridge of only 24 feet wide, as well as an increase in transportation caused by the town's economic growth. These are discussed in more details in articles on the museum's research website about the bridge and communications, and you can see more there. Not much is known about the bridge at this time, other than that it did its job linking the 2 halves of the town. Various photographs show it from around 1860. The newspapers reported an accident in 1871 when the steam tug Victor, whilst taking in tow the schooner Champion, backed against the iron bridge and broke off a large proportion of the outside girders, bearing the words Cast Anno Domini 1795. Regulations had to be issued to the effect that wagons were only to go over the bridge at walking pace, and that no wagon was to go over it having a load exceeding 2 tons, while the repairs were carried out. The background to the decision to replace the Coalbrookdale Bridge awaits investigation, but evidently this old bridge was felt to be too weak for the loads likely to be caused by the visit of the Bath and West Show to the town in 1883. A newspaper at the time reported, in 1882, at a meeting of the Corporation on Friday, the tender of Mr. George Moss of Liverpool, amounting to £3,214 11 shillings and 4 pence, was accepted for the construction of a new wrought iron bridge over the River Parrett in the centre of the town, the ironwork of the present structure to be disposed of to the contractor for £175, and the contractor undertaking to provide a wooden temporary bridge for the sum of £150. In the following year, we have a newspaper report, 1883, opening of the new bridge. There was a grand ceremonial here on Monday, the occasion being the formal opening of the newly constructed bridge over the Parrett. The bridge, which was designed by Mr. R.C. Else, C.E. of Bridgwater, is 75 feet span and 36 feet wide in the clear, having 2 footpaths, each 6 feet wide. It consists of 7 wrought iron arched ribs drawn together by traverse and diagonal braces, and rests upon and is built into masonry abutments. The panelling consists of ornamental cast iron railings fitted into Ham Hill masonry piers each end, and surmounted with cast iron lamp brackets carrying Suggs patent lanterns and burners. The road is practically level, only rising 6 inches in the centre of the bridge, and the new bridge is 12 feet wider than the old one. To celebrate the opening, the tradesmen generally close their establishments. This view is towards Fore Street. Note the spectators on the temporary bridge here. In the evening, a Guy Fawkes procession was held over the bridge with squibbing, and this is one of the key moments in the development of Bridgwater Carnival, although again that's another story. It is extraordinary that despite numerous photographs of the time of the town, especially of the docks, surviving in the museum collection and elsewhere, none have yet appeared showing the bridge replacement, which was a major project and involved the construction of a temporary bridge alongside. Yet at least some of the Coalbrookdale Bridge still survives. The remains of 5 iron ribs can be seen embedded in the bridge abutment. The 2 cast iron town coat of arms survive, one being on the balcony of the Royal Clarence Hotel building, the other being held at the Blake Museum. The Silver Cup, awarded to the Bridge Committee, is in the museum collection. It was awarded in 1807 by the town MPs for the Bridge Committee's support in their election successes. Bridgwater was plagued with traffic jams well into the 20th century. This photograph shows the bridge gridlocked in 1955, for example, and the ornate building behind was the George William Memorial Hall, the YMCA headquarters. This had opened in 1887 and was demolished in 1968. Congestion on the town bridge was not alleviated until 1958 with the construction of the Blake Bridge on the Broadway, which was opened with the key which was used back in 1883 for the town bridge. This plaque recording the event, however, sadly went missing after recent road widening work, and it would be nice if it was replaced. The Blake Bridge was followed by the Chandos Bridge in 1988 and the Drove Bridge in 2002, and the Squibbers Way on the outskirts of town in 2019. So, thank you very much for listening. On behalf of the Bridgwater Heritage Group, we hope you've enjoyed these 2 talks exploring the history of Bridgwater's bridges over almost 1,000 years now. Thank you.